Genesis, chapter 2, tells us, "And they were both naked, the man and his wife, and were not ashamed." This was humanity at its most innocent, the golden age of the Garden of Eden. Adam and Eve were like little children. They had no idea what shame even was. They walked with God and lived in perfect harmony with all of creation. In that paradise, everything was bathed in a holy light. But all of that changed forever the moment they ate the forbidden fruit. Genesis says, "Then the eyes of both of them were opened, and they realized they were naked, so they sewed fig leaves together and made coverings for themselves." That first feeling of shame was one of the most important turning points in all of human history. A moment that seemed so simple, yet it held the key to the deepest change in our nature. With the loss of Eden, humanity made the shift from innocent children to adults. That forbidden fruit didn't just bring the knowledge of good and evil, it sparked the dawn of self-awareness. So why would people who knew no shame suddenly become aware of their own nakedness? And why was that first feeling of shame such a pivotal moment in our transformation? What profound secrets about what it means to be human are hidden behind that painful moment of feeling exposed? In the Garden of Eden, Adam and Eve lived a life completely free of care. In this paradise created by God's own hands, everything was perfect. In the morning, they walk through the dew-covered grass. At noon, they rest under the shade of lush trees. At dusk, they listen to the calls of the birds returning to their nests. In those carefree days, they were like innocent children. They didn't know what trouble was. They had no concept of sorrow. God gave them just one rule. You are free to eat from any tree in the garden, but you must not eat from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, for when you eat from it, you will certainly die. This was God's command, and it was also humanity's first test. In the center of Eden, the tree of the knowledge of good and evil stood quietly. Its fruit was vibrant and dazzling, glowing with an irresistible allure. One day, the cunning serpent approached Eve. Unlike the other animals, it wasn't so simple. Its eyes glinted with a sly light. Did God really say you must not eat from any tree in the garden? The serpent's voice was soft and captivating. We may eat fruit from the trees in the garden, Eve replied. But God did say, you must not eat fruit from the tree that is in the middle of the garden, and you must not touch it or you will die. You will not certainly die, the serpent said. For God knows that when you eat from it your eyes will be opened, and you will be like God, knowing good and evil. The serpent's words felt like a soft breeze, gently stirring Eve's heart. Eve stared at the tree, her heart pounding. The fruit glistened in the sunlight, seeming to hold all the wisdom in the world. This fruit is good for food and pleasing to the eye, she thought, and also desirable for gaining wisdom. Temptation washed over her like a flood. She reached out her hand, plucked a fruit, took a bite, and then gave some to Adam, who was with her. Adam took the fruit and ate it too. In that instant, a strange feeling washed over them. Their eyes were suddenly opened, but this new sight brought a kind of trouble they had never known. They looked at each other and were suddenly overwhelmed with a feeling they couldn't explain. For the first time, the sight of their own naked bodies made them feel ashamed. They scrambled to pick fig leaves, weaving them together to cover themselves. This was the very first piece of clothing in human history, made not for decoration, but to hide their shame. This simple act marked the end of mankind's age of innocence. As evening approached, a cool breeze swept through the garden. This was the time of day when Adam and Eve would always walk in the cool air, enjoying intimate conversation with their Creator. But this day was different. When they heard the sound of God walking in the garden, fear seized their hearts. They hid among the trees, trying to escape God's sight. Adam, where are you? God's voice echoed through the garden. This call wasn't just asking for Adam's location, it was a question for all of humanity. I heard you in the garden, and I was afraid because I was naked, so I hid, Adam answered, his voice trembling. This was the first time in history that a human being hid from the Creator out of shame. In that single exchange, the deepest change in humanity was taking place. Adam and Eve's eyes were indeed opened, but this new sight brought them a pain they had never known before. By gaining knowledge, they realized for the first time that they were incomplete. For the first time, they tasted shame. Who told you that you were naked? God's voice was filled with sorrow, yet it carried the weight of the world's deepest sigh. You were made in my image, as pure as innocent children. You loved each other, trusted each other, and knew nothing of shame. I gave you freedom, but I also gave you a commandment. Now you hide from me because of knowledge. What has this knowledge truly given you? God's voice thundered through Eden. Your eyes are opened, but you can no longer see the original light. You have gained wisdom, but you have lost your innocence. You understand good and evil, but you have forever lost that childlike heart. This is the most important moment in human history. From now on, you will always carry the burden of this awakening. Before he could finish, lightning flashed and thunder roared through Eden, and the sky itself seemed to change color. God's voice grew even more solemn. You thought gaining wisdom would make you like gods, but you had no idea how much pain this wisdom would bring. This first shame is only the beginning. From this day forward, you will face a completely new. With a deafening crash, the world changed in an instant. The sun and moon went dark. So, what turn of fate did humanity's first moment of shame signal? And through what kind of transformation would human nature have to pass now that its innocence was lost? How many unspoken mysteries of life were hidden behind the simple pain of feeling exposed? In that moment, Adam and Eve fully understood what their choice meant. They had gained the wisdom to distinguish good from evil, but they had forever lost the pure innocence that allowed them to communicate directly with God. Their eyes were opened not only to their own nakedness, but to the incompleteness deep in their souls. This awakening of self-awareness marked humanity's transition from a state of pure innocence to a stage of mature judgment. Because you listened to your wife and ate fruit from the tree about which I commanded you, you must not eat from it. Cursed is the ground because of you. God's sentence echoed through the Garden of Eden. From then on, humanity would have to water the earth with sweat and earn food through labor. This wasn't just a punishment, it was a necessary part of humanity's journey toward maturity. Knowledge brings not only power, but also heavy responsibility. The shame Adam and Eve felt wasn't just about being naked, it was about recognizing their own imperfection. This sense of being flawed became an eternal spiritual burden for humankind. And so, humanity began its long journey of self-improvement. They were driven out of the Garden of Eden, and an angel with a flaming sword was placed to guard the way to the tree of life. But this seemingly cruel punishment held a deeper meaning. Humanity had to leave the paradise of innocence and find its own way in a world full of thorns. Only by facing hardship could they truly grow up, only by taking responsibility could they gain true freedom. As they were leaving Eden, God made garments of skin for Adam and Eve and clothed them. This first real set of clothes was a symbol of God's compassion. Though humanity had lost its innocence, God had not completely abandoned them. The clothes not only covered their shame but also signaled the beginning of human civilization. From that day on, Adam and Eve began a new life. They cultivated the land and raised children. Through their labor, they gradually understood the meaning of responsibility. In raising their children, they came to understand the true meaning of love. What they lost may have been innocence, but what they gained was the wisdom that comes from growth. This transformation was painful, but it was also necessary. Just as a butterfly must break free from its chrysalis to fly, humanity had to endure the growing pains of knowledge to truly mature. The pain Adam and Eve felt from their nakedness wasn't just physical shame, it was the awakening of the soul. With the loss of the Garden of Eden, humanity began its long journey of growth. We are no longer ignorant children, but adults who must take responsibility for our own choices. While this transformation comes with pain, it also gave humanity true freedom, the freedom to choose between good and evil. Ultimately, the transformation of human nature is this: we lost innocence but gained growth, we lost the happiness of ignorance but gained the freedom of choice, we lost our direct connection with God but began the long journey in search of truth. That very first feeling of shame was humanity's first step toward becoming mature.